In a previous video, we talked about using Python on the back end and React on the front end. It allows us to build very powerful full stack applications. But I actually found an even better tech stack to build full stack AI applications, also with Python. So in this video, I want to go over this tech stack that I'm actually using for this project right here. So this is a README to site app. So a user can add a README URL from GitHub, let's say, and the app is going to turn that into a site. So I can click on generate site here, and we are going to see a preview of that site in a few minutes. So it's going to show us the design essentially, and then the user can decide to publish the site here. Right, so we are generating this site with AI, and we'll talk all about the tech stack. We're using background jobs in the Python ecosystem, and we're actually using Next.js here for the UI. A lot of people are actually wondering if you can use a separate backend for your Next.js application, and the answer is yes. There are actually many legitimately good reasons to do so. I'll explain those in a second. And here we go. Now, of course, I made the preview a little bit tight here. I'm zoomed in as well, so the proportions here look off a bit. But the point is, we went from this very plain README file, just a markdown file essentially with some text, to a beautifully styled website here. Of course, there are some things that I think could be improved, but that's also because the proportions here are off a bit. But overall, if somebody has a repo or README and they want to turn that very quickly into a decent looking landing page, I think this is a pretty cool way of going about doing that. All right, so you have a Python app, and maybe you already have one from a different project. Maybe you already had some kind of service, or you automated some workflow with Python. You just didn't have a front end yet. So now you want to add some kind of front end. In a previous video, we talked about adding a React Vite app to this setup. But let's say you actually want to use Next.js. So Next.js comes with some benefits. You can statically generate some of the pages. They have some nice server actions here, really beneficial for certain types of things you want to do in apps. So lots of benefits actually by using Next.js for the UI layer or front-end layer. But you may be a little bit confused because isn't Next.js a full stack framework? And yes, you're right, it actually also has a server side. So how does that fit in here with our Python application? Can you even use a separate backend when you're using Next.js? And the answer is yes, actually, and there are many legitimately good reasons to do so. For example, we can have Python running on a long-running server. Next.js is really focused around a very fast request and response cycle. So if you have a task like generating the site HTML, or what I was doing before, generating videos with remotion, those tasks can take multiple minutes. In fact, in videos, it can take 20 minutes to render a video. If you're going to host Next.js, it's often done with serverless functions. They have a timeout after some time. So if you want to do tasks that take longer, that don't fit into a very fast request response cycle, you often get into an awkward spot with just plain Next.js. So if you have a separate Python app that takes care of those tasks, that's a perfectly good use case. Because this can be on all the time. This can be running all the time. It's not just a serverless function, because this can just be running all the time. And the other benefits are you can have WebSocket, for example, or you may want to have a persistent file system. So a long-running server may have certain benefits that you do not get with the standard hosting of Next.js, right? Not saying that you can host Next.js only with serverless functions, but that is often how it is hosted, and that's how it's more engineered around that. And of course, you can use your favorite language, Python, with a Python app. Next.js is just JavaScript, TypeScript. So if you have people on your team that are more comfortable with Python, maybe you have some kind of other project where this app is coming from, a machine learning project or AI related project where Python is often the main language, then you can have some tasks that you do here in the Python app and you can still integrate it with Next.js. I'll show you that in a second. And there are a bunch of other benefits as well if you want to scale this up or down independently from the main app, or if there's an issue with this, it doesn't bring down the entire app. And of course, if you're just updating something in the UI layer, you don't have to redeploy the entire system, only that part that has actually changed. So of course, we are rediscovering the benefits here of a microservices architecture. But that's just to show you that this is not some strange architecture. It actually makes a lot of sense in many scenarios. So this app that we're building here is actually using this architecture. Now, what kind of app specifically would you use for Python? Because it has a couple of popular frameworks like Django and Flask and FastAPI. So actually in this project, I'm using FastAPI because, well, Django is a little bit bigger. It's more batteries included. And so I would think that just for a full stack app by itself, you would typically use Django. But in this case, we are using Python more as like a processing layer with a different type of app as the UI layer. So I just want to have a pretty simple, more thin backend layer. And so I think either Flask or FastAPI makes a little bit more sense. But you could make Django work in this setup as well. So it depends on what you're more familiar with, I think. So what happens when somebody actually submits a URL here, README of some GitHub repo? What's the flow of the data here? So the front end here is actually Next.js. So if the user is in the browser and submitting data, well, the data can be submitted directly to the Next.js backend, or we can submit it from the browser to the Python backend directly as well. And in fact, with the previous video, the React Vite app, of course, was doing exactly this. The Vite app, in many ways, is just when you have Next.js with all client components. Now with Next.js, it has its own end. So you may want to submit the data first to this backend, and then from there make an API call to the Python service, the Python app. And I would say that is probably going to happen for a lot of the flows in your app, because Next.js has some server actions. So often when you mutate data, when you submit something or edit something or delete something, it is often done with these server actions, and they, well, are integrated with both the client and server. So the data typically goes from here, from the browser to the server side in Next.js. And from there, we can invoke an API endpoint that we have configured here on our FastAPI backend. I'll show you all of this in a second for the actual site I have here. So our Python app is going to get an incoming request here to generate a site. Is it immediately going to send back a response with the site HTML? No, because it can take multiple minutes before a site like that is generated by the AI model. So typically we want to have some kind of background job or queuing system for that. So in the world of Python, there is Celery, there is also BoolMQ. There are a couple of options that you can use in a Python app for these tasks that may take a little bit longer than usual. Right? So generating a site may take a few minutes even if it's a big README, or you're doing other types of tasks that take longer. So actually what the Python app may respond with very quickly is actually the ID of the job that was queued in the system. So we're basically telling this app, thank you for your incoming request. We have scheduled the, well, generation of the HTML in our queuing system. And here's the ID, so later you can follow up and ask us questions about it, like the status. Right, so if a lot of people are generating sites in our app, we are going to process them maybe one by one. You can also have a more sophisticated setup perhaps where you try to do it in parallel or something like that. And you may also want to give priority to paying users and so on. So there may be some logic around processing the background jobs. So we are invoking an AI model, and so we need to make an API call to an AI model provider. So for each background job, we are going to ask an AI model, hey, here's the text of a README. Please give us back some HTML and CSS for that, beautifully designed. So we need to make an API call to an AI model inference provider. So let's say that's OpenAI. That's actually what I'm using here. Right, so a background job, you could think just like a function, for example. In that function, we make an API call to OpenAI. At some point, after perhaps a minute or so, we get back a response with the artifact that we wanted to generate. Then we need to store that somewhere, because we don't want to lose it. We don't want to keep it in memory, and then when the app shuts down, we lose it. We want to store that so we don't have to generate it later again. So I've actually had a really good time integrating Supabase here to power all of this. Yes, they are sponsoring today's video, but it has been generally very easy to integrate them. And I think it's because the coding agents that you're using to build these AI apps, they have seen a lot of Supabase code, and it's just a super smooth integration. It's often only a few prompts and you have pretty sophisticated setup. Right, so the background job will get back the HTML, the artifact, and then store that in Supabase. So in Supabase, we typically have a Postgres database for the actual app data. So you could say the app state. So here I have a bunch of tables, actually just two for the jobs and also the projects, right? So user automatically creates a project when they submit a README URL, right? So I just have a bunch of data in here. I'll show you how to integrate it in a second. They also have the storage API. So if you are generating those types of artifacts, right? Or maybe you're generating images, right? Or PDF files, typically you want to use the storage API for that instead. So actually for the actual site artifact, it's actually just an index.html file that we're generating. I'm storing that here in a bucket here in Supabase. So the background job will be finished at some point. So we will at some point have site HTML in our database. Now, how does the user know that, or how does the front end ultimately show that result without refreshing? right? Because if I submit generate site here, you can see we are waiting for a preview, and in a few minutes it will automatically show up here without us having to refresh. So how is that possible that the browser can see it at some point, even though the site is sitting here in a Supabase bucket? Well, there are a couple of options, but a popular one is simply to ask, right? So we can simply ask every 10 seconds in our Next.js server, hey, is it finished yet? And our Next.js server will check our database or our storage, our bucket. It's going to go make a request to Supabase. It's going to check if that bucket already has an HTML file in there, right? It will get a response. And maybe initially the answer is no. So the Next.js server side is telling us in the browser, no, it's not finished yet. 10 seconds later, it's going to ask again, and it's going to check the Supabase storage again. Maybe at that point, the background job is finished and already put the site HTML in there. So now it will get back the site HTML here in our Next.js app and ultimately passed to the browser. Right? That's why now you can see I have this Supabase beautiful site from their README without refreshing. Right? So Supabase actually has a Python monorepo for Supabase libraries. Actually, they included a nice URL here. They have a Python client library, so great fit here for a Python related stack. If we check out the README, this is what it looks before, and this is what our AI app is able to turn it into. So if Supabase wanted to create a separate landing page for their repo, this could be a great tool to get started with it. But this is in a nutshell the architecture of an app like that. And I think this is a super powerful combination because you get all the benefits from your favorite Python framework, and you get all of these web app related benefits from Next.js, including static site generation, right? Because maybe we do want to statically generate parts of this app, right? So we have a showcase route here where we showcase all of the sites that have been generated perhaps. We can generate this page once a day perhaps. So when a lot of people go here on a particular day, it does not have to be generated on demand for all of them. That would be quite slow. They have to wait until it's generated. We can just generate it once in a day, and so it's ready to go when people go here, right? Static site generation is one of the powers of Next.js. So we get all those benefits, and then you have Supabase here, very powerful, very easy for your coding agents to work with. There's a reason they've been growing so fast. They're powering some of these vibe coding platforms. And so I think if you're going to build these AI apps, I think this is a very powerful stack you can go with. Let's take a look at the code as well. So in terms of folder structure, you're typically going to, of course, separate out the FastAPI app from the Next.js app, right? So here I have the whole Next.js app in this web folder because it's the web app. And here I have API. This is my whole FastAPI app. And then I have one worker that's for that background job, that's Celery. Now with Supabase, you can hand off a lot of tasks to your coding agent. It depends on how much power you want to give your coding agent. It can still give you, for example, SQL that you can then run yourself inside the Supabase dashboard if you prefer that. Right, so Supabase offers an MCP server for your coding agent. You could technically also give it API keys to your project. So you don't really have to do that much here in the dashboard if you don't want to. So on the homepage, somebody can submit a GitHub repo URL. So that is done here, right? So this is all still in the browser. In the Next.js app, we have a repo form. And here in that component, we have the logic for submitting. So you can see we just make a post call to the Next.js server side. This is an API endpoint on the Next.js server side, sending along the URL that the user submitted. So here in the Next.js app, we have /API/project. So first it creates a project. So our Next.js app is going to get that incoming call with the repo URL. And from here, we're going to make that leap to the Python app, right? So we have actually used an API endpoint in this case. Technically, you can make it work with a server action as well, but API endpoints are also fine to use. So from here, we make the API call to the FastAPI app. So we just have a utility for that. So we don't have to specify the URL and port every time, right? So the Next.js app is running on port 3000, the standard one, and the FastAPI app is running on port 8000. So here we are writing Python here to spin up an API endpoint where we will receive that incoming request from the Next.js server side. So first we parse the incoming repo URL just to get it in the right shape. And then we actually have one function for both creating a project and submitting a job in our queuing system. Right, so we're in here now, and now we want to create a job. And we're also returning a response here with some information about the project and the job ID, so that from the browser later it can ask if it's already finished. Now in that create project and job function, we are also going to store some data in our Supabase database. So I want to store something about the project. So I'm going to insert something, right? So I have a Supabase client here, and I set up the tables with that SQL that my coding agent gave me. And so then it's able to work with the tables. Now after that, we are actually generating the project. So this is where we go into the tasks file here, because now we are going to run a background job, a background task with Celery here. So you can see Celery app task called generate project. We're going to first mark it that it's being processed. Right, so here in our database, we can see that these jobs, they have a status column here. So when it's being processed, it will show something like processing. This is actually a bit easier for the Next.js app to check if something is already finished or not. Right, so in this background task, we are ultimately actually generating the landing page. This is what will make an actual API call to OpenAI and get a response. So at some point we are getting HTML output, and again, it can take some time, but that's okay because this is decoupled from that very fast Next.js request response cycle. This is running in the Python app. So this can now be uploaded to our bucket in Supabase. Right, so here you can see we are using the storage API to store the HTML content. By the way, why am I not storing the HTML of a site in the standard Postgres database? When would you use the storage API with a bucket? Well, this is because it's more of a whole artifact by itself. I'm only going to read and write to it in whole, not parts of it. Also, this may actually become pretty big, and I don't want to bloat my Postgres database and have it interfere perhaps with some of the other more standard queries that I would make. And also conceptually, it's better to have a separation between the data that is more, you could say, metadata about the HTML content and the actual HTML that is being generated. I think conceptually it's easier for you as a developer to have that clear separation. And so then here from Next.js app, we're just going to do some standard polling. So I have a use effect here where we set up a function that runs every 2.5 seconds, right? So here we're just going to make a call to our backend to check for the status of that particular job ID. So there you go. If you're building an AI app, I would say consider this tech stack. Make sure to check out Supabase with a link in the description. In any case, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.